You do not need 30 different exercises to build a stronger, more explosive body. In fact, with the right 7 movements, you can challenge nearly every major muscle group in far less time than most people think. And one of these exercises is so effective, it can completely change the way you train. Number 5 is still my personal favorite. Let's get straight into it. Exercise number 1, thruster. If there is one movement that immediately proves how brutal full-body training can be, it is the thruster. This exercise combines 2 of the most powerful patterns in strength training, the squat and the overhead press, into one seamless, explosive action. The result is a movement that forces the lower body, upper body, and core to work together at the same time. Your quadriceps, glutes, hamstrings, deep core, shoulders, triceps, and spinal stabilizers all fire in a single repetition. That is exactly why the thruster is one of the most efficient exercises you can use when time is limited and results matter. According to research on multi-joint movements, exercises like this can drive significantly greater caloric expenditure than isolated lifts performed separately, simply because the body is coordinating and fueling so much muscle mass at once. To do it properly, hold the weights at shoulder level with the elbows slightly forward. Drop into a deep squat while keeping your heels planted and your torso upright. Then, drive up powerfully and use that momentum to press the weights overhead in one fluid sequence. The key is continuity. There should be no dead stop between the squat and the press. One important detail: keep your eyes slightly above the horizon as you descend. That helps preserve spinal alignment and reduces the tendency to pitch the torso too far forward. A solid prescription is 3 to 4 sets of 8 to 10 reps, resting 60 to 90 seconds between sets. If you have rotator cuff problems, shoulder instability, or serious lower back issues, this is a movement that should be approached with caution or supervised professionally. Exercise number 2, farmer's carry. At first glance, the farmer's carry looks almost too simple to be effective. You pick up weight and walk. That is it. But once the load is heavy enough, the truth shows up fast. This movement punishes weak links all over the body. With heavy weight in each hand, the forearms, traps, shoulders, deep core, quadriceps, hamstrings, feet, and ankle stabilizers all have to work together to keep you upright and moving. Even the gluteus maximus, the largest muscle in the body, stays highly active to stabilize the hips with every step. That makes the farmer's carry one of the most practical exercises for building real-world strength, improving posture, and reinforcing the entire trunk without a single isolated abdominal exercise. To perform it well, hold a weight in each hand with the arms extended naturally by your sides. Pull the shoulders slightly back and down, brace the core, and walk in a straight line with measured, controlled steps. Keep your gaze forward and your spine neutral from start to finish. What makes this exercise so effective is what happens when fatigue arrives. The challenge is not just carrying the load, it is maintaining position while your body tries to unravel. The most frequent errors are rounding the shoulders, bending the elbows to reduce grip demand, losing neutral spine, staring at the floor, and using a weight that is too light to create a meaningful stimulus. For beginners, a good starting point is a combined load equal to roughly 30 to 40% of body weight carried for 20 to 30 yards per set. Perform 3 to 4 rounds with 60 to 90 seconds of rest. If you have severe wrist tendonitis, active disc issues, or major balance limitations, get guidance before adding this exercise. Exercise number 3, burpee. Few exercises combine strength, conditioning, coordination, and muscular endurance as brutally as the burpee. In one continuous sequence, you recruit the chest, shoulders, triceps, core, quads, glutes, and hamstrings while forcing the cardiovascular system to keep pace. That is why the burpee remains one of the hated and most effective movements in training. High-intensity burpee work can elevate metabolism long after the workout ends through the post-exercise oxygen consumption effect, making it one of the fastest ways to create a serious full-body training response in minimal time. To perform it correctly, begin standing, squat down and place your hands on the floor. Jump the feet back into a plank, complete a full push-up with the chest reaching the ground, return the feet forward, and finish with an explosive jump, arms extending overhead. Every phase matters. A half-rep burpee gives half the result. One of the biggest differences between an effective burpee and the slocky one is breathing. Exhale during the hardest part of the effort and inhale during the less demanding transitions so you can keep rhythm from rep to rep. The common mistakes are letting the hips sag or rise too high in the plank, skipping range on the push-up, turning the final jump into a lazy hop, and losing breathing rhythm entirely. Beginners can modify the movement by removing the push-up or the jump and performing 3 sets of 5 to 8 reps. If you have knee pain, fragile wrists, or uncontrolled hypertension, use adapted versions and progress carefully. Exercise number 5. Clean and press. The clean and press is one of the clearest examples of total body power. It links force production from the floor all the way to the hands overhead in a way that few exercises can match. The lower body generates the drive, the posterior chain transfers the force, and the shoulders, arms, and core finish the job. During the clean, the legs and hips create explosive upward force. That power travels through the trunk and into the upper body as the weight is received at the shoulders with the elbows high and a slight receiving squat. Then, press the weight overhead until the arms are fully locked out. That receiving position is critical. Many people ignore it, but it is what helps absorb force and protect the wrists, shoulders, and spine. The legs and hips create the power. The arms should guide, not yank. The most common errors are trying to muscle the weight up with the arms, receiving the load stiffly, and excessively arching the lower back during the overhead phase. Use 3 to 4 sets of 5 to 8 reps, resting 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Because this exercise demands mobility, timing, and joint control, it is not a good choice for people with shoulder injuries, active disc problems, wrist issues, or serious rotator cuff dysfunction. Exercise number 5. Push-up to downward dog. This is my personal favorite because it does something most exercises fail to do. It develops strength and mobility in the same movement, and it does it in a way that exposes weakness immediately. The push-up portion strengthens the chest, front delts, triceps, and core. Then the transition into downward dog opens the posterior chain, stretching the spinal erectors, hamstrings, calves, and even the plantar fascia. In one repetition, you are training force production and restoring mobility at the same time. That combination matters more than most people realize, especially if they sit for long hours or spend most of their training time locked into tight, compressed positions. And maybe that is exactly why so many people avoid this movement. It is challenging in 2 directions at once. It asks for strength and flexibility together. Start in a high plank with the hands slightly wider than shoulder width. Lower into a full push-up until the chest reaches the floor. As you press back up, drive the hips high and back into an inverted V position. Reach the heels toward the ground and keep the head between the arms. Hold that position for 2 to 3 full breaths, then return to plank and repeat. That pause is not optional. Much of the value of this exercise comes from controlling the transition and owning the stretch rather than rushing through it. The main mistakes are letting the hips sink during the push-up, failing to lift the hips high enough in the downward dog, bending the knees excessively, and moving so quickly that the mobility benefit disappears. Perform 3 sets of 6 to 10 reps, holding the downward dog for 2 to 3 breaths each time. If you deal with carpal tunnel, wrist pain, or glaucoma, this movement may need modification. Exercise number 6. Kettlebell swing. The kettlebell swing is one of the best tools for building explosive hip power and dominating the posterior chain. It lights up the glutes, hamstrings, spinal erectors, core, shoulders, and forearms while teaching the body to generate force from the hips instead of relying on the lower back. That matters because the hip power sits underneath so many athletic and everyday actions, from sprinting and jumping to picking something heavy off the floor without getting hurt. And when the gluteus maximus is trained explosively, the metabolic effect can remain elevated well after the session is over. That is why athletes from completely different sports continue to use the swing. It is simple, aggressive, and incredibly effective when performed correctly. Set your feet slightly wider than shoulder width and hold the kettlebell with both hands between the legs. Push the hips back into a proper hinge while keeping the spine neutral. Then snap the hips forward explosively, squeezing the glutes hard and allowing the kettlebell to rise to about shoulder height through momentum, not arm lift. At the top, the body should form a straight line. The glutes should be fully engaged and the core tight. The arms are only there to connect you to the load. The biggest errors are squatting instead of hinging, using the arms to raise the kettlebell, rounding the back on the way down, and failing to finish the rep with a hard glute contraction. A strong working range is 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 15 reps with 60 to 90 seconds of rest. If you have acute back pain, an irritated disc, or significant knee issues, start cautiously and only with good supervision. Exercise number 7, sled push. If you want an exercise that feels like it is stripping away every excuse in real time, this is it. The sled push is relentless. There is no easy phase, no place to hide, and no moment where tension disappears. Research has shown that pushing a moderately to heavily loaded sled can raise the heart rate to levels comparable to sprinting, but with much less joint impact. That makes it one of the safest and most efficient ways to combine conditioning and lower body strength in a single, brutal effort. The quadriceps, glutes, calves, and core take the lead, while the shoulders and triceps stay active throughout the push. Unlike traditional lifts that include a partial relief phase, the sled keeps the body under constant demand from the first step to the last. That uninterrupted effort is exactly what makes it such a powerful metabolic tool. To do it correctly, stand behind the sled with the arms extended and the body angled forward in a straight line from head to heel. Drive it with short, fast steps, keeping the feet close to the ground and the core braced the entire time. Body position matters here. The straighter and more efficient your lean, the better the force transfer into the sled. The usual mistakes are letting the hips rise too high, taking long, inefficient strides, trying to push mostly with the arms, and holding your breath under effort. For beginners, use 3 to 4 sets of 15 to 20 yards with 90 to 120 seconds of rest. Because of the cardiovascular and structural demand, people with acute knee injuries, active lumbar disc problems, or unevaluated heart conditions should avoid it until cleared. These are 7 of the most brutally effective full-body exercises you can use to build real strength, real power, and real conditioning without wasting time on endless movements that do not deliver the same return. If your goal is maximum efficiency with maximum impact, this is where you start.